Welcome to the Making History podcast, where we have monthly chats about the history of our crafts and the people who loved them first and handed them down to us here and now. I'm Nikki. If you are here because you follow me on YouTube or elsewhere as Pin Cut Sew, welcome. Thank you so much for coming over. Or if you're just a history lover and that's why you're here, I'm so glad about that too. This is the very first episode of this podcast. I have never done this before, but I'm very excited to. I do love to talk, and my guest, I think, does too. I'll introduce you to her in just a second. But today we are going to discuss the topic of Madame Alexander and her doll company. I bet a lot of you are familiar with Madame Alexander, but I took an absolute deep dive into this topic recently, and that is because of my guest, my daughter, Layla. Hi. Let me introduce Layla to you. She is my now 18-year-old daughter. She just turned 18. Layla has been working for me editing my YouTube videos for about a year, Layla, you think?
Year and a half, I think.
Yes, and she is an invaluable part of my business. I mean that seriously. So thankful for you. So Layla, tell us just a little bit else about yourself.
You kind of covered it. Like I'm 18. I edit your videos. I want to be an artist. Mm-hmm. And I work in estate sales. As you know, I feel like
that I was waiting.
Yeah, I work in estate sales. I've been working for a year and a half also in estate sales. And
it's funny because Layla and I this one summer, 2 summers ago, we were like, hey, let's make this our summer of estate sales. And then she ended up getting a job in estate sales. And most of the things about that are really great things. But on the other side, we now own some pretty obscure, weird things.
But they're cool.
Yes.
They're cool.
They're cool. But if I bring home one more animal-shaped tchotchke,
oh, girl,
I might just make her quit the estate sale industry.
Oh, Natalie said she liked this recent one you got.
The little dog.
She said you liked it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Layla, would you say that you had a crafty and creative upbringing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say so also. Hobbies run deep in this family.
Girl, deep.
Yeah.
We are entrenched in hobbies over here.
Entrenched is a good way to put it. Okay, so the reason I wanted to have Layla on this particular episode is because she's the reason that I deep dove into this because of her estate sales. So we went to this estate sale, and I don't remember why we went to this one. There's usually something we have our eye on,
mm-hmm.
but there was a random shelf and there were some vintage dolls there. And there was this one super cute one. And Layla, you know how to check.
Yes, back of the neck.
Yes, on the back of the neck, the vintage dolls have a name on them usually. This one said Alexander. And I know that Madame Alexander is a current doll company. I didn't know much about the history of Madame Alexander dolls, but I saw this one cute doll. She was in relatively good shape. She needed a little bit of cleaning up, but she had her original clothes on. Her hair wasn't too crazy. She was not as creepy as a lot of old dolls can be, but I still almost didn't buy her.
I sweet talked her back into it.
Yeah. I was like, wouldn't it be so sweet if I could make her some vintage outfits and just have...
Yeah, it's fun. Girl, and your eyes lit up. You're like, oh my gosh, a vintage doll. Like, yeah.
My hesitation was that people, they have such a creepy reputation.
Because they are a little creepy.
Honestly, yeah. The ones in the Goodwill shelves that...
Yeah.
Like, hair everywhere, especially when they're laying down and their eyes are closed.
Oh, yeah. And the big wedding dresses, like, they look like Carrie. I'm like, no.
Yeah, some of them are pretty rough. This one was not that rough. I brought her home anyway, and then I went on this all-out obsession of cleaning her and learning about her. And that brought us to this podcast today. Well, Layla, what is your history with dolls?
With dolls? I was a doll person, but I remember, like, after I was, 8, like, I just didn't know how to play with them anymore. So, like, I liked them. And I was like so resistant to, because Natalie is really scared of dolls. Okay. And so
I had an incident with a friend.
It was my instant. I tricked her. Anyway.
Natalie's my other daughter.
Yeah. Anyway, we would take her out of the room, and then we would move, our other friend would move a bunch of dolls around, and then we would call Natalie back in. Natalie was like, anyway.
Yeah. They made me believe, this was like 10-year-old Natalie probably.
Yeah.
They made her believe that the dolls were moving at night.
I'm so sorry.
She's not had a doll in her room since.
No. So sorry, Natalie.
Think her face says she can't do it.
But no, so I just didn't know how to play with them because she wouldn't play with them. And so I was like alone. And so I was just like, I don't know, do I just like put on different clothes? But I did like them. And like,
yeah,
I had a big American Girl doll phase and then a miniatures phase and all that.
You guys didn't have real American Girl dolls.
No, they were fake.
Yeah.
But
Because we thought they were really expensive. I mean, they are really expensive.
They are really expensive.
So you hear how expensive these dolls were.
Ooh, okay.
It's crazy. Yeah, so they had the Target brand ones.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm pretty sure one of the Target ones we got from Goodwill.
From Goodwill. Yeah. We had all different kinds.
But I remember buying a new wig for someone's doll. Because, you know, the nicer doll, the more expensive dolls have nicer hair.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
Although we kept pretty darn good care of their hair.
You can use fabric softener, soak the doll's hair in fabric softener, and you can get it and put it in curlers.
Oh.
That's what I did with my
Yeah. Oh.
It really worked.
Yeah.
But I think for me, playing with dolls now is just making the clothes. So I'm not in this for collecting the dolls. I mean, kudos to anyone who does, but my hobbies involve me doing something, and I would have a hard time with just a collection just to look at it.
Yeah.
I gotta play with it.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to look crazy like talking to them or anything. As an adult, it'd be like weird. They're just sitting there.
Act out your arguments you wish you had had.
Oh, I already do that anyway.
That's really funny. But you played with Barbies.
I did play with Barbies, yeah, but then like also like it was like me and Natalie playing with them.
Oh,
you know,
I would say doll adjacent. You guys played with Lego friends.
Oh yeah,
much longer than you played with them.
Oh, because they were so much cooler in my humble opinion.
Legos count.
Legos count. I agree, but Natalie was always such a stickler that like I always wanted to play like rich grandmas go on a cruise, but she was like, no, we have to play it like a neighborhood. She's like, okay,
very imaginative. She
very much so. Yes,
she would have that story planned out in her.
Oh yeah, she had a script. She was like, you got to do this, you got to wear that. I was like, okay,
that's it.
We'll do this. It was creative. It was great.
Okay, so Layla, I'm going to tell you what I have learned about Madame Alexander and her doll company.
Okay,
you interject with questions whenever you have one.
I'm really good at that.
Gasps.
Ooh,
there is some tea in this story.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Very interesting hot tea about the past.
Yes, she has been withholding this tea from me ever since she mentioned the podcast.
It lives here with me, and so I keep studying these things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no. Or just cool factoids. But most of my information I'm getting from this big book called Madame Alexander Dolls, An American Legend by... Oh, there's no author on here.
It's anonymous.
It just says... by Portfolio Press. I'll link to it in the show notes. I just got it on Thrift Books. I just wanted to say show notes.
Show notes. Oh, is that what it's called?
A podcast.
Oh, okay. I need to learn the lingo.
Okay, so I'm just going to go decade by decade, basically, and tell you her story. She was amazing. As a business person myself, I am so impressed and inspired by her. Okay, so she was born in the late 1800s, actually. She was born way back in... I already forgot. Oh, March 9th, 1895.
Okay, ma'am.
Her mom was an immigrant, well, a refugee, actually. She was Austrian born, but she fled. She lived in Russia, and she had to flee Russia because she was Jewish.
Okay.
And the Russian government at the time was committing atrocities against Jewish people, and a lot of them fled to New York City.
Okay.
And that includes Beatrice's mom, and she was pregnant with Beatrice at the time.
Her name is Beatrice?
Yeah, I love it.
They call her B?
Everything tells me no.
Oh. But B is so cute.
She was fancy.
Oh, she had to be all demure and all that. Okay.
Yes. So her mom, it's not really clear if her biological father died on the boat or died before she ever left Russia, but her mom's husband died before Beatrice was born. And Beatrice was born in New York City shortly after her arrival.
Okay.
And then her mom very quickly thereafter met and married a German guy named Maurice.
Okay.
Maurice Behrman.
Also love that name.
And she considered Maurice, it is a great name because of Beauty and the
Beast. Yeah,
that's
Maurice.
What picturing.
No, yeah, that's like perfect.
So Maurice was a dad to Beatrice. She loved him. She admired him. They were two peas in a pod, tons of stuff in common. And actually, the same year that Beatrice was born, he opened a doll hospital.
Oh,
yeah.
That's so cute.
So dolls were entrenched in Beatrice's upbringing, like from the get-go.
Yeah. Was it called a doll hospital?
Yes.
Like, that's so cute.
The doll hospital. And he worked closely with a friend who had a toy and doll company. So the two businesses tandem together, which worked out.
Yeah.
But of course, back then, dolls were made of porcelain.
Oh.
So Beatrice grew up. Actually, the couple had 3 more daughters. So Beatrice had 3 sisters.
Okay.
She was the oldest. And that comes into play later.
Okay.
3 sisters, think of Little Women.
That's so cute.
So her childhood was a good one, although they were very poor. They grew up in a true ghetto in New York City where people really did live on top of each other, but had a great community atmosphere. They helped each other out. Everyone was just trying to make it in this new land. So there was this air of like excitement because America really was the land of opportunity then.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I still think it is.
I think it is too.
the world was your oyster. Basically, you could make what you wanted of yourself.
Yeah.
And so they're struggling along, and Beatrice, they let her carve out like this outdoor garden area. I imagine you doing this, Layla. It had like this little courtyard. They let her create like a garden in it. And she would take books out there and read them. She loved Little Women. It was her favorite. Marmee and Beth, Joe, March.
Yeah.
No, March was their last name.
No, Beth,
Meg, Joe.
Meg, Joe, Emma,
Beth and Amy.
Beth and Amy.
Yes. And she herself had 3 sisters.
Yeah.
She loved this story. She loved all kinds of stories and literature, which served her well in her business later. But she would see the wealthy carriage trades come through, and they were fancy.
Yeah.
And she didn't like being held back by the lack of her family's money. And so she vowed, even as a child, she's going to be rich.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
I love that for her.
And she did not apologize about it. Like, this will not be my life. I'm going to be wealthy. You watch.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So fast forward to the 1910s.
Oh.
She graduated high school at the age of 17 in 1912. She was a valedictorian.
Oh my gosh, similarities.
Very smart. Oh, like valedictorian.
I was talking more the 17 part, but
we homeschooled. Layla just graduated early also.
I did, you know, just like B.
Just like me. Okay. So yeah, even late. She was offered a scholarship to go to Europe, but her family didn't have the money to let her go.
No.
Because you know how scholarships work. We'll pay for you to come, or to join the program for.
Yeah, but you got to get here.
You got to get yourself. All right. And you got to live while you're there. And part of it seems to be that they just wanted to keep her at home.
Oh.
Sending your 17-year-old off to a foreign country. I have a 17-year-old, Layla. No,
I'm 18.
I can relate to this. Like, just not quite being ready to just let them fly so far away.
Okay, but if I get offered a scholarship in Europe, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm gone.
Take it. Yeah. But I understand that they just couldn't afford.
Yeah, of course.
Which worked out for the best, it turns out. So instead, she got married.
Oh,
just a few weeks after she graduated high school.
Really?
She married someone who worked in a hat company.
Oh my gosh.
His name was Philip Behrman. And so her name was then Beatrice Alexander Behrman. I think that's how you say it. Behrman?
Behrman?
It's Behr. And she's German.
He's German.
That's good, Layla.
That was good. Oh, it sounded really French.
Okay, so now she's married. And then they both worked at this hat factory. And then World War I.
Oh.
So there was an embargo on German goods, and a lot of the dolls that Maurice, his toy shop buddy, would get into the shop, you could no longer get.
Yeah.
So the dolls and toys industry came to a halt when it came to ordering them from outside the U.S.
Yeah.
So industrious Beatrice said, you know what? We got to have something to fill your shelves, Pops. So she gathers her sisters around their kitchen table, and she says, we're going to make some dolls. Since we can't order them, we'll just make them.
Yeah.
I have the fabrics. We have the skills. And so the first doll they made was a Red Cross nurse doll.
Oh my gosh, cute.
You know, when you're a little girl and it's wartime, all these little girls are looking up to these Red Cross nurses, which was, I'm pretty sure, the main way that women could get involved in our efforts was to become a nurse. It wasn't as hard back then as it is now to become a nurse.
No, of course not.
Like, I think just anybody could take the training and become one, but they have the uniforms and revered by these little girls. And so you can imagine that these nurse dolls were a great success.
Yeah.
People loved them. Little girls loved them. And Beatrice was a taskmaster. She kept those sisters in from the very beginning. She cared a lot about the quality of their stitches. I imagine they were hand sewing them.
Oh, yeah.
And because this was like slightly before the sewing machine.
Yeah.
Sure. I should know that as a sewer.
Although they had like the foot ones, but would they have one of those though?
They were around their kitchen table. I think they were needle and thread.
Yeah.
So they were making these cloth dolls. Stuffing was different back then too. It could be like pokey.
Oh yeah.
Stuffing them with stuffing. And they were painting on the faces. Cute. And a lot of them had yarn hair. So after this, she started creating baby dolls. Same method. And she did it. She got them through the wartime, making these dolls. Thankfully, all her family still loved her after this. This sort of awakened her. She already had a creative streak, but this awakened her business mind. Layla and I talk about business together all the time.
Yes.
And when you're in business and it's exciting and it's so much fun, especially creative business. The ideas just flow. So she was still working at the hat factory, but she was restless at this point. She's like, nope, no more hat factory. I'm going to make something out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, she brought her husband along with her, and she told him, you either join me in my work or you find a new wife.
Oh, I'm loving her.
Believe me, that she said. Her daughter says she doesn't think she was serious, because also I have this quote she said of her husband, I was able to become what I became because of Philip and his love and support of me.
Oh,
And I can relate to that. My
That's
husband
cute.
has been extremely supportive. Whenever I wanted to quit, he's like, let's just keep going a little bit.
yeah.
As long as it's fun, we're not losing money. So,
Yeah, boom.
and yeah, look what happened.
Here we are.
Very supportive. I appreciate that. So in 1915, she had her daughter Mildred. She called
I love
her-
the name Mildred. Oh my gosh, that's on my baby names list.
It's really cute.
It's really cute.
So Mildred was born in 1915, and Madame Alexander said she was her greatest creation.
Oh,
However, she wasn't a super involved mother. She was a businesswoman through and through. She was extremely driven that way. So thankfully, Mildred had her aunts.
oh,
Her aunts did all of the things that cool aunts do to,
Yeah.
to the theaters and the movies. And actually, Layla, Mildred became a very renowned artist. In her own.
really?
Yes, and she doesn't have anything negative to say about her mother.
Oh,
But she did say she wasn't there very much. She was running a very
a business, yeah.
Okay, so 1920, women earned the right to vote.
Heck yeah.
But women still did not just start businesses willy-nilly. This was not something that women did.
Yeah.
In fact, women could not get business loans by themselves without a male co-signer until I think the 1970s. I heard that online recently
The 70s.
because you can trust everything you hear online.
That's insane.
It's crazy.
A business loan? Could they file for a
Well,
business?
you could get a business loan, but you had to have a man on it.
Oh,
Yeah.
ew.
Usually your husband, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
These days. So she started her official doll business at age 28. Mildred was at this point
28 to 8.
7?
Wait, 1915.
Oh yeah, she was a toddler.
She was like 13.
Yeah.
What?
No, Beatrice is 28 years old. The year was 1920.
Oh, I thought, okay, sorry.
So Mildred is 5.
Okay.
So the business was growing. She was still doing it around her kitchen table, but she involved more of her friends and neighbors. I think that is the cutest thing.
Yeah. Did she pay them?
Yes,
Icon.
I believe.
I would hope.
Because she had a company at this point, and she did eventually get to move into a studio in Manhattan. So she's moving on up.
Yeah.
She started marketing to stores and tried to sell her dolls. This is the point when she convinced her husband to come work with her and said, either you work for me or you can leave me. And so, like any business, the growth was slow but steady. She started receiving articles and a little bit of renown in the community.
Yeah.
There were ups and downs. There was a flood.
Oh, gosh.
And she's had to sell a bunch of flooded dolls at a discount. And she was also going around to try to get loans.
Oh.
And this one really funny story. She finally did get somebody to give her a loan, but he didn't want to do it.
Oh, weird.
And later they were at a dinner function and she called him out on it in front of everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, she introduced him and thanked
Oh, yeah.
him and basically said, it's a good thing you gave it to me because you didn't want to. You didn't believe.
Oh.
And then she said, I have this great, she said about that incident, I wanted to teach him a lesson. You need to believe in people's dreams, especially women's. They ended up being good friends with
Okay.
the guy, but they never let him forget it.
That's okay. Yeah.
But I bet he's glad. He said later that he was glad that he did.
No, he did it. Yeah.
Otherwise, bummer. Because it ended up really succeeding.
Really jumping off. Yeah.
So in the 1930s, she developed this method of making the doll faces in a different way. So they were still made out of the fabric, but she figured out that she could mold the fabric if she mixed it with other materials.
Oh, interesting.
And she could give it like a real nose and eyes and things. And
Yeah.
this became like the next sensation in dolls.
Okay, ma'am.
Because they weren't porcelain and they weren't as like basic.
Yeah, and fragile, I think.
Right, yes. And so this composition kind of doll became the new industry standard. And this is also the time when she started calling herself Madam.
Oh.
Because there was a doll maker in Europe who called herself Madam. And Madame Alexander, you know, she was fancy.
Yeah.
She was forming her brand. Today we would call it your
Marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And her brand was very much wrapped up in her and who she was.
Yeah.
Her look and everything. We'll see more of that later. It's very
Okay.
So she was still marketing to these stores, and finally FAO Schwartz ordered her very first orders. And that is still a big store today. Actually, Target has a line.
Yeah, and they're so cute.
Yes, they're always really cute. So she had a working relationship with them all the way through. Like,
wow.
They probably still do, I think. So they were one of her first orders, and this is when she had a great idea. We don't think this is innovative now, but this was the first time it had been done then.
Oh.
She decided to capitalize on the popularity of a certain character called Alice in Wonderland.
Mm-hmm.
And this was her very first character doll. This had not been done before by other companies. And she made the first one in 1930, and it was a huge success because it was a storybook character that was beloved, brought to life. And obvious, like this is so obvious to us now. People do this all the time. Like you could go buy like Taylor Swift. So this was innovative and creative. And this was before, we were just looking this up earlier. This was before the cartoon movie came.
Yeah.
And so she based this doll on some famous at the time black and white illustrations in one of the editions of the book.
Yeah.
And so now I wonder if her rendition of the doll, because it would have been in color, influenced at all the movie cartoon version.
I'm sure it did.
Of Alice. Who thought of it first?
Yeah, the chicken or the egg, we're not sure.
Right. But I want to look more into that.
Yeah.
So next came the Great Depression. But somehow the entertainment industry was still thriving. I think we saw this a little bit during COVID.
Yeah.
When times are hard, people will still spend on their creature comforts.
Yeah.
You need some joy in your life. And I think if we went back to the pandemic times and tracked the spending trends of people, I think they would be similar to what they were in the Great Depression.
Yeah.
So the movie industry was thriving, and she just happened to be making dolls of the characters they were making movies for.
Yeah.
People would also go spend on these dolls. So she made the March Sisters from Little Women, finally.
And they're so cute.
And Marmee.
Oh.
She actually made many renditions of all of these, of Alice and the March Sisters throughout time. So as she made other famous actors and things, and then her daughter, Mildred, said, "Ma, you need to make this Shirley Temple doll into
she's smart.
up-and-coming little girl star. Everybody loves her."
Yeah.
But Madame Alexander, she had her finger on the storybook world, not so much on
Hollywood.
the industry. Mildred did, her daughter.
Yeah.
She's like, "I'm telling you, Mom, telling you." No. And then another company snapped her up. She told her daughter later, I should have listened.
Yeah.
But this is a funny workaround. She did finally, when Shirley Temple was about to be in the movie Little Colonel.
Oh, yeah.
She made a face mold that looked just like Shirley Temple, and she called it a Little Colonel doll.
Oh.
So she didn't have to say it was Shirley Temple. That was trademarked now by somebody else.
Yeah.
She sold it as the Little Colonel doll. And then she continued to use the Shirley Temple face mold for tons of other things.
That's so funny.
If you look up pictures, you can see when she has a little dimple. Yeah. So funny. So at some point, she started making dolls out of a composite material. I was having a hard time figuring out when that was. But the composite material was made of like sawdust and glue and resin and cornstarch. And it could be, like,
interesting.
poured into a mold, basically.
Kind of like in a lot of stop motion movies, like a studio does this for the Coraline face. It's the same body. She just has different face molds they put on.
Yes.
And they pour those, I think, a similar way, but I could be wrong.
Now they probably use plastic.
It's probably plastic, yeah.
This was like the gateway plastic.
Yeah, and gateway plastic is crazy.
But it did let them do more intricate things. So he made the sleep eyes. She says she was the first to make the sleep eyes.
I believe her.
I believe her too.
Yeah.
Who's to say? And here's where the tea comes in.
Spill it, girl. I'm so ready.
Okay, so in 1934, there was a set of quintuplet sisters born in Canada.
Whoa, okay.
It was obviously extremely rare. They didn't do like in vitro and stuff then.
Yeah.
So quintuplets that all survive birth and all girls.
Oh my gosh.
Miraculous.
Yeah.
And instant sensation. But their parents were rather poor.
Oh.
And this book says they were simple. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means, yeah.
They already had 5 children.
Oh my gosh.
So the doctor Let me just read this.
Okay, yeah.
In the so-called best interest of the quintuplets, the Canadian government removed the newborn girls from their parents. Under the supervision of Dr. Alan Roy Defoe, the Dionnes were made wards of the Ontario government and were placed in a virtual theme park called Quintland across the street from the family home in Corbeil, something. In this fishbowl environment, they were on display for as many as 6,000 visitors a day who came to watch them play and eat behind a one-way screen. You should see Layla's face.
That is insane.
That was my face when I was reading this. I remember these quintuplets, they lived on into old age.
Good for them.
Every year on the Today Show when I was like in my 20s, they would have them on for their birthday. Celebrating another birthday. I think they've probably all passed away now, but they lived a very long time.
Oh.
But can you imagine the choice to put them on display?
How long were they?
I don't know. We should look and...
No, we need to look that up.
I was like, this is a whole different deep dive that has nothing to do with crafting history. Better believe I'm going to look.
Okay, that sounds like... This also has nothing to do with crafting history, but I will make it quick. It sounds like that guy that got stuck like upside down in a cave and like rocks spilled on top of him and he died down there. And then they got his corpse out after like he had lost oxygen and everything. They got his corpse out, put him in a glass like corpse container on display in the cave, in the entrance of the cave, as like a museum attraction.
Oh my!
It was in was it? I think it was Mammoth Cave. Like, and then
I remember you telling me about that story.
Yeah, and then somebody like stole his body out of his coffin, and then they could only find his leg or something, or like something crazy like that. It was.
Okay,
but like he was dead.
Podcast should take that assignment over.
No, literally. Well, some YouTuber already did it, and they did it really good. Like it was intense.
I bet we can find a YouTube video about the Dionne quintuplets.
Oh, for sure.
I felt about it later, and that's the thing is that it makes me wonder what parenting and interesting choices we make now that 100 years from now people are going to be like, what the hell?
Well, I mean, family vloggers are just putting their kids behind a glass wall and like,
you're not wrong.
I'm not wrong. Am I wrong?
And it's starting to, the internet is starting to raise awareness about the exploitation of the children on the influencer pages. Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. Anyway.
I was not expecting that. I was coming up with some pretty crazy stories, but none like that.
So the Dionne quintuplets, they started being on like Quaker Oats boxes, just like Olympians.
Yeah.
Getting all the
stuff.
Paid advertisement money, but they were toddlers at the time.
That's crazy.
Well, Madame Alexander won the rights to make the dolls.
Okay, ma'am.
And so she did. But she didn't just make the dolls. She made their entire fishbowl environment.
Oh, my gosh.
So in the picture, it's a happy birthday to the quintuplets postcard on the wall. And it has them all on this like merry-go-round setting. It has pictures of them in their little carriage she made for them.
This feels like the Legos we used to play. Like me and Natalie, we would each have like 5 kids and they're like actually a zoo attraction and some crazy, like that's insane.
I will say that whenever I saw them like in my growing up years, because they would be like, they were a marvel up until.
Oh yeah.
Here they are.
Oh, they're so cute.
And they looked happy and well adjusted. I don't know how long the scenario went on, if they gave them back to their parents later.
Gosh, how did they name them all?
Oh, their names are really cute.
Oh, Annette. Oh, okay. Cecile, Annette, Marie, Emily, Yvonne.
But Emily is spelled the French-Canadian way.
Ooh, French-Canadian way we love. Okay, that's actually really cute.
Yeah, they were cute.
I also think Cecile is on my baby names list, so I'm really killing it today.
Okay, so before we move on, after that tea, we can take a quick break. As you may have noticed, this podcast is free of sponsorships, meaning I'm not taking this break to read advertisements to you. That's not how I'm choosing to support myself doing this type of work for now. So that said, if you're enjoying this podcast and you would like to offer your support, there are a couple great ways you can do that. First, if you're into sewing and quilting or want to get into sewing or quilting, you can go over and watch my YouTube channel at Pin Cut Sew. And you can visit my pattern shop where I offer beginner-friendly PDF sewing patterns and tutorials, some fun sewing-related stickers, and even a few fun quilting books I've written. Go to www.pincutsewstudio.com/shop or find me on Etsy as Pin Cut Sew. Another thing you can do is to leave a 5-star review on this podcast. Reviews go a long way in helping podcasts be presented to more listeners. So if you're enjoying this, I would so appreciate you taking the time to leave a quick positive review. Lastly, and perhaps most tangibly, you can simply donate to the Making History podcast by going to www.buymeacoffee.com/pincutsew and gift us a little something everything there. And I do indeed promise to take Layla out to coffee. All of these links will be in the show notes below. So let's get back to the show. Okay, let's hop back into it. She continued making movie star dolls, new face mold, and the sleeping eyes. She kept branding herself as Madame Alexander. She always wore... Actually, when I posted about that doll I got at the estate sale, one of the comments on Instagram said that this woman, she said, I'm in my 40s, so I'm not that old, but I actually met Madame Alexander as a child.
Oh my gosh.
She said she was dressed like one of her dolls. She was wearing like a frilly doll, like she always looked great. And the business was very much about herself.
Yeah, that's iconic.
And I can relate to this as a creative person in business. I can't tackle a project unless I'm personally interested. Like, if you ask me to make something obscure that I have no need or desire to make,
oh yeah,
I can't do it.
It's like, no.
But I am happy to make anything that fits into what I'm already interested in. And that was very much like her. So that's why she was making the storybook characters she enjoyed, the movie characters she enjoyed.
Yeah.
Scarlett O'Hara became a very popular doll. And it's funny because they approached her to make the doll before they had cast Vivian Leigh as the star. And
I'm so sorry. Is Scarlett O'Hara a movie person or Scarlett O'Hara a character?
The Wind. Layla's never seen.
Oh, I thought it was an actor. Okay.
I watched Scarlett the Wind. I don't think she.
It sounds kind of boring.
So my mom.
No offense. I'm so sorry.
I remember I hated it, but now I like it. Anyway, Scarlett O'Hara was played by Vivian Leigh, but she made the doll. She designed it. She didn't even have an actress to model it after.
Oh.
And it just so happened that they then cast Vivian Leigh, who looked exactly like her doll. So she took all the credit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, coincidence or coincidence?
I made the perfect doll, and then they cast.
Yeah, the Alice thing, this thing. Like, come on.
Yes. I think she just had impeccable taste.
Oh, for sure.
And also, even in the face molds, like you see a lot of vintage dolls. The Madame, and I looked at a lot just to be sure. Yeah. The Madame Alexander face molds were the prettiest ones. They were.
Yeah.
A lot of them are creepy.
They're creepy.
And just disproportionate.
No, yeah. I told you about this, but I was reading Jane Eyre, and she mentioned Jane gave Adela a wax doll. And I was like, what is a wax doll? Like, that sounds even harder to play with than normal dolls. Yeah. And I looked it up, and they're freaky looking. Like, they look like voodoo dolls. I'm not even kidding. Like, yeah, they were scary.
It was like fabric coated in wax.
Well, I don't even know, because then also like it was like old people. Like, they're like old people dolls. So I'm like,
oh, wouldn't those have been like dollhouse dolls?
But they're big. I was like, what do you like?
That is really interesting.
What little girl wants like an old man doll? Like,
hey, I have a grandpa doll pattern in my shop.
Yeah, but those are cute. Like, these ones were creepy and they were old, and I was like,
okay, yeah, no, I get it.
They looked like
weird.
They looked like the grandparents in The Visit. I'm not sure, they're really creepy. I'm not sure. Like, they looked like that. It was scary. Anyway, continue.
Okay, she also made the Princess Elizabeth doll.
Ooh.
Little Princess Elizabeth was born over in England. I mean, you've now been alive for 2 royal weddings. And I can see how crazy people go. Oh, maybe I guess you didn't notice how. But here in the U.S., people were staying up till like whatever hour in the morning so they can watch.
That's crazy.
Royal wedding. It was all over the magazines. It was like coverage galore. It was nuts.
Wait, the wedding or the
weddings? Harry and William, Prince Harry and then Prince William.
Oh no, yeah.
Were like, and I'm sure when Princess Diana, I'm sure that wedding was insane too.
Oh yeah.
So Princess Elizabeth at the time was born, and she immediately started making Elizabeth dolls.
Ooh.
Obviously very successful. She was 7 years old at the time when she started making the Princess Elizabeth doll to commemorate her father's coronation.
Oh, okay.
And so that face mold was used for many, many, many dolls to come. She also continued to make Elizabeth dolls as Elizabeth grew older.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Are those ones really expensive now? Like, are those the more pricey ones?
I would imagine so. We can talk about price a little bit. Like, the doll that I got at the estate sale is a 1952 doll, and she's worth $200 to $300 depending on the edition.
Well, I was only asking because Beanie Babies in estate sale world, I apologize. The only Beanie Baby that's worth anything is the Princess Diana one.
Oh, I didn't like. Was one? Is it?
Oh yeah, it's like called. No, it's like I think it's purple, and she's like holding something. I don't know, but that's like the only one that's worth anything. It's insane how much these things go for. Like,
it's crazy,
so expensive. And so I wonder now that
some of them really are very, very pricey, and we'll get to the priciest ones after that. But also during this era, she tried some other things like children's clothing design.
Oh.
She had a stint where she collaborated with someone to make marionette puppets.
Oh my gosh, cool.
The same guy who made marionettes for The Sound of Music. And Madame Alexander made an entire set of The Sound of Music dolls.
Oh my gosh. Wait, what outfits are they wearing? Are they wearing the little curtain ones?
Sure. Yes, they're wearing the curtain one.
That's so cute. Oh.
They're adorable. Like no detail.
Oh my gosh. And the guitar and her bag.
The clothes that she made for them were absolutely incredible.
I'm obsessed with her bag. And the little high heels.
Okay, so 1940s, World War II happens. Challenging times for everyone. But she, like a smart businesswoman, just kept repeating what she had been doing that was working.
Yes.
So she made more celebrity dolls. She made the child star Margaret O'Brien. She learned her lesson from the Shirley Temple thing.
Oh, yeah.
She made Ginger Rogers, a figure skater, Sonia Heaney. Something. She also started making the first Walker dolls. This is what my doll is.
Yes.
Her legs, her head goes back and forth.
Yeah.
Super cute. And that was innovative because there's rubber bands tying all the sides together instead of string.
And I mean, that's like what the, Apple Watch is to us. It's like magic to little Victorian kids. Like,
yes. She also, because it was wartime again, made a patriotic line of dolls. She made one when she could sense the end of the war coming called Miss Victory.
Yes, ma'am.
She started making 21-inch portrait dolls of different film heroines, opera, and ballet principals. There's one.
What? Ballet principals?
She's always made the most beautiful ballet.
Have you shown Natalie that?
Yes.
That's so cool.
My daughter Natalie is a ballet dancer. And she made various public figures. And these sold for $75.
Yeah.
Which was a good week's salary for the time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was probably about $1,000.
That's insane.
Which is, so this is where the collector's items.
Yeah.
And
who do they have? Do they have like Abe Lincoln?
They had, I mean, like I said, the film heroines, ballet princesses.
Yeah.
People that were well known at the time. And I think we see this still now. These people are mostly well known for a short period of time.
Yeah.
So it's easy for those to become so collectible.
Oh, okay, I see.
Here's someone like Jackie Kennedy, who we'll see in a minute, that will be famous for eternity.
Yeah.
Or like Queen Elizabeth. I think they still make the Queen Elizabeth doll.
Well, yeah, because she's iconic. I mean.
Yeah. She made, well, that was in the 50s, though. Lucille Ball dolls.
Oh.
Her wedding.
That's so cute.
Okay, so that brings us to... at this point, they started using plastic.
Ooh.
Instead of composition. And it was more durable, of course. It was more... you could make more complex precision cutting on the faces. But there wasn't anything that was quite working. A lot of the times the skin would be mottled or something. And so they accidentally she says it was by accident. They accidentally found the right formula of plastic to use for the dolls. And it was so much better. It wouldn't crack or anything like composition dolls would. And it would last a really long time. And this now became the new doll industry standard.
Yeah.
So they manufactured their own doll plastic, which I think is really impressive.
That's insane.
That's like chemistry.
Yeah.
That's not just like sewing doll dresses.
That's not just cute little girls,
Her and Philip together did it.
Wow.
Okay, so here comes the 1950s, and this was the heyday of Madame Alexander's company. The company was booming. Everyone was recovering from the war. Beatrice now had 35 years of business experience under her belt. She was in her 5th decade of life, so she was queen of the roost.
Yeah.
So she was started to win a lot of awards. She was now running the company with her son-in-law, Philip, who Mildred married, and their son, Richard.
Wait, they both married Phillips?
No, sorry. Their son-in-law's name was Richard.
Oh.
And their son, Philip, after.
Okay.
They started winning a lot of awards, getting a lot of accolades in magazine and doll awards, which is, of course, a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And so then Princess Elizabeth got married. Now she was 27, and she was going to be coronated as in 1953. So the doll coronation set that she designed is crazy. Here's the page in the book. It is not just like Princess Elizabeth being coronated right here.
Yeah.
Stunning, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
It is her ladies in waiting, as we would call them.
My gosh.
They call them her recessional.
Ooh.
It is, we have the priest, we have the choir boys.
Oh my.
We have all of these other people in robes. Like, it's crazy. Plus the set and the throne she's sitting.
You could buy that whole, like, tiered. Like, could you buy this?
No. This was
Oh, okay.
display in a museum, I think. Let's see.
insane.
Scenes from Madame's coronation tableau included the playing of God Save the Queen. That's the Archbishop of Canterbury holding her crown. It was exhibited at Brooklyn's A&S department store. And then I believe I had read that it was donated.
That's insane.
Yeah, crazy, right? Can't you just see her, though, like hyper fixate
Oh, yeah. She's like you.
on every yes, I can see myself in this so much.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if I get this idea, I am not stopping.
No.
And I want to spend every moment on it. I can
Yeah.
imagine that's how she was with this. Anyway, so in the same year, she made Peter Pan dolls, and then she introduced the 18-inch Glamour Girls series,
Ooh.
and then the little 8-inch Alexanderkins. The most popular ones are the international ones and the storybook character.
There were a lot of those at estate sales.
Yes, we see those a lot.
Yeah.
They still make them, and they were making them all the way, like, they're not hard to come by.
No, not at all.
But then her pride and joy, and probably who she's most famous for, she designed the Sissy doll in 1955. Sissy was 20 inches tall. She was fully jointed. She had arched feet so she could wear high heels.
20 inches?
And she had a bust line and like a womanly figure.
20 inches?
Yes.
That's crazy.
And so, Layla, who did you think before this was the very first fashion doll ever invented?
Well, Barbie.
Barbie. This
Yeah.
was 4 years before Barbie.
Icon.
And Sissy
Mm-hmm.
had the most amazing wardrobe you can imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, Madame Alexander, heart of New York City in the 1950s. She was surrounded by glamour
Oh, yeah.
and couture clothing and the most beautiful supplies you could get, laces. I mean, and then she was very particular about how things looked and were made.
Yeah. I mean, she knew what was up.
Yes. So one of these dolls cost $25 back then, which is about $300 today.
My gosh.
I know, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And so, like, I was thinking when they said they were expensive, I was like, oh, but American Girl dolls are.
Yeah. How much were American Girl dolls?
When you guys were young, American Girl dolls were about $120.
Oh.
And that I thought that was insane. They've probably gone up now.
Oh, yeah. I grew up thinking those things were like $2,000. Like, I thought they were the most expensive things in the world.
That's really funny. I mean, compared to the ones we were getting at Target, which
Oh, for like $30. Yeah. Yeah.
so that's pretty expensive. And then later in 1957, she made her little 9-inch companion doll named Suzette.
Cute.
But then Barbie came around.
Barbie.
We'll get to her.
I loved Barbie, though.
But I think it's interesting because we do think, like, I've read Ruth Handler's biography, The Inventor of Barbie, and she has an amazing story.
Yeah.
But I don't remember reading anything about there being other inspiration.
Yeah.
I mean, they were on two separate coasts. Like, Barbie was invented in Malibu, right?
Oh.
And Suzette was all the way over New York City. So
Yeah.
it's possible, but toy companies, I'm sure they were aware of what each other were doing.
Yeah.
And Mattel, I feel like when she pitched Barbie to Mattel, Mattel was already seeing what
Seeing it over there. Yeah.
Schwartz and thinking, we need to get in on this fashion doll scenario.
Yeah. Well, and also, when did the littler one come out for Madame Alexander?
57, and then Barbie came out in 59.
Oh,
So
okay.
it tracks that.
Yeah.
Ruth Handler was not aware of Madame Alexander. I know Mattel.
Mattel definitely was, especially if she was still connected with Frau Schwartz. Is that how you say it?
Wait, didn't she?
Huh?
She founded Mattel, though.
Who founded Mattel?
Ruth Handler.
Oh,
recent.
Icon. I don't know anything about her, so I'm not.
So yeah, now I just really wonder. I'm just trying to think. It's been several years since I read that book.
Founded
Amazing
Mattel.
biography.
It could also be like she started producing it earlier, and then it took a few years, and then Barbie came out by the time Cicilette. What was her name? Cicette.
I do remember Ruth Handler marketed Barbie to so many different toy expos and things.
Oh, nobody wanted it.
Thought moms would be like freaked out. And honestly, Madame Alexander got the same kind of pushback about Sissy.
Really?
Like, nobody needs a doll with, a bust.
That's crazy.
But she's like, no, little girls, they want to play with baby dolls. They want to play mommy, and they want to dress up.
Yeah.
So, and of course, it was a wild success. Very, very classy. Barbie, I think, got a little bit more vitriol because she was wearing like bathing suits. And
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
little bit different.
Also, I think like going into the 60s and 70s, which were like big fashion, like the mod, and then the 70s, like crazy
Yes.
hippie.
Yes.
I think Barbie maybe translated a bit better to that.
Yes, you are so right. Because then, one factoid before I move on to the 60s, she made a Jackie Kennedy doll,
Uh-huh.
fashion icon to this.
Of course, yeah.
So she makes a Jackie Kennedy doll. And technically, I saw on a YouTube video about this, she didn't actually have to have permission to make a public figure.
Oh, interesting.
But Jackie Kennedy, the White House, whoever it was in charge, wrote to Madame Alexander and asked her politely to cease production. Jackie Kennedy.
Rude.
Well, she respected that.
Yeah.
She didn't have to cease, but she did. But she continued to use the Jackie face mold and I think still uses it.
Yeah. I mean, she made it.
Pretty fun.
You know?
Okay, so in the 60s, this is when I think things started to not like it never downturned as far as like she never didn't have a successful decade.
Yeah.
But she was a little bit out of touch with pop culture at this time because she was getting older herself.
Yeah.
And she tried to venture into the more modern people. Like she made a Gidget doll, a Brenda Starr doll, and these dolls were shaped a little bit more like Barbie.
Yeah.
Anne Marie, which was a TV character, and interesting anecdote, she was the first female TV character allowed to live on her own. So this allowed Marie character had her own like apartment and single life. Yes.
That's crazy.
But these were all in production for just a short time, and Barbie had just taken over the industry of the smaller fashion doll. I think Barbies are 11 inches, and that was now the industry's small fashion doll.
Yeah.
Even though Sissy was still doing well.
Yeah.
But Madame Alexander refused to put ads on TV because she said it was vulgar.
Girl.
I think it's so funny.
That's really funny.
So classy.
Oh, yeah.
So classy. She's like, no. But Barbie had no problem with that. So
Oh, yeah. She was there.
Barbie took over that part of the market. This is when like politics were really heating up in the 60s. Her husband, Philip, died in 1966. She took that very hard.
Yeah.
She still ran the company with her son-in-law, Richard, and her grandson, William. And the three of them were now running the company. At this point, it seems like she just wanted to make what she wanted to make. And she made a grandma doll.
Oh.
And like I said, I have made a pattern. Pattern. It's in my shop for grandparent dolls that you can customize to look like you.
That's so cute.
Yeah, so she still just kept making what she liked, I think. And then she was still winning a lot of awards and achievements. So she was on display at the Smithsonian, which she considered a huge accomplishment.
Like like her dolls. Okay, I was going back to the
which
quintuplet thing. I was like, oh gosh.
No, so, but of course, then she was accused by the feminist movement of, the gender stereotypes. It's so crazy that this argument is still prevalent today.
Yeah.
About marketing toys to gendered children. And she really pushed back against that because she was like, nobody can say that I, as a woman, ran a company from the ground up in the 1920s to now.
Yeah.
And say that I'm not for female empowerment.
No, like that's crazy.
But she maintained that no, little girls want to play with baby dolls and dress-up dolls.
You ask them and that's what they want to do.
And so that's what I'm making for them. And so at this point, they were still making dolls, but they were becoming more collectible.
Oh, okay.
And this bothered her a little bit because at some point she made a Scarlett O'Hara doll in the 70s. And they didn't order enough, and people went nuts over this.
Oh.
And now they're making vinyl heads, and so it was another innovation.
Oh. And
they didn't anticipate the popularity of it. People were storming, they ran out. And then, of course, they were accused of the scarcity concept. Which we're going to create scarcity around so that it drives up the price, which was not her intention. And that actually really bothered her that adults were buying her dolls more than kids were.
It was vulgar.
And so, And so they tried to correct that and just bring the company back around to manufacturing dolls for little girls with fancy clothes for little girls.
Of course.
And so she retired in 1960 or 86. No, 88. Her family continued to run the business. She died in 1990. The company was sold a few times. The first time, the buyers didn't really carry on her vision.
Ew.
But the second buyer did. And they decided to get back to... In fact, the first buyer started making like fancy porcelain dolls and collectibles.
That's not
at all.
No, that's not the vibe.
Prioritize like cheapness over.
Oh, that's... Yeah.
The Madame's death was not the end of the Madame Alexander Doll Company. You can still buy these dolls. They're still beautiful. They're still highly collectible.
They're still expensive.
Yeah. So some of not so much, like the little Alexanderkins we talked about, the little ethnic ones, they're not very expensive at all. But if you find a sissy doll, I was looking at sissy dolls the other day just to see, and I feel like about $1,200 was the base
Oh my gosh.
for one in good condition. Like I said, the doll that I got for $10 at your state sale, those go for a few hundred. So it just kind of depends on the doll, how many were made.
Yeah.
But the sissy dolls, even though a lot were made, they are highly collectible. They have another sissy doll, a more modern sissy doll, but she's a little bit more on the risque side.
Oh.
Not necessarily anymore like a child's doll.
Oh, okay.
Mostly, it seems like adults collect those dolls now, but they do still make 18-inch dolls, just like the same type of doll as the American Girl makes. And I think my sister's kids, your cousins, had Madame Alexander dolls, and they're not expensive. They're like $35.
Oh, okay. That's not bad.
So I want to show you this one more page because I just want you to describe what's on it and tell us what you notice about it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's a nativity. It's really ugly. I wouldn't put that in my house. Like, I'm gonna be kind of honest. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do I know on it?
What about the white baby Jesus?
Gosh, I hope that mouth slap was audible.
I thought for sure that you would notice because
I was expecting some weird, like, I was not expecting that.
Okay, so the problem with this is that every character except the wise men have
They're white.
obviously we know the nativity people were not.
We're not white. Also, why is there a girl shepherd? Girls can't be shepherds. That's the last I. Wait, that's a boy?
I think.
Wait, she has like, oh, it's a beard. I thought it was pigtail.
Yeah, that's a really weird beard. I guess
That is really weird.
this was made in 1997, which really shocks me because
Yeah.
I feel like as a society, haven't we progressed past making
White Jesus.
white nativity scenes? And
Yeah. And
anyway, the reason I bring this up
yes, go ahead.
is, I mean, I make doll patterns. I always make multiple skin tones. It's important to me because
Yes,
I
we
can
love.
imagine being that little girl who, like, I'm a white person, but I do feel like it would be so sad
Yeah.
not to be able to find a doll who looks like you.
Yeah, of course.
And so then I start to look into this, like, did she make black babies or anything else? And she did make the international dolls, which interestingly, some of those are still white.
No way.
It's like they're white, but they're dressed in the
Oh, that's
dress.
interesting.
But most of them do have different skin.
Okay, yeah.
And actually, she did make, there's black
Wow.
under baby dolls as early as the 1930s.
Oh my gosh.
The black ballerina doll I saw a picture of. So they were there.
Yeah.
I'm sure that she just understood that her market was probably mostly white people. So
Yeah.
make as many, which is why they're not that common to find. But I was happy to know that she did make.
She did that. Yeah.
She did make them. And so that wraps up our discussion of Madame and her dolls. I hope this has been enjoyable for you guys. So thank you, Layla, for joining.
Thanks for having me on.
It's really fun
It was very fun.
thinking about it with you. You can find us on Making History on Instagram, Making History Podcast on Instagram. You can tell us what you thought. You can send us a DM. And you can also give us ideas for future podcasts. You can also shoot me an email. My email address is nikki@pincutsewstudio.com. Nikki @pincutsewstudio.com. You can again find me on my website, Pincut Sew Studio, on YouTube as Pincut Sew. And Layla, tell us where they can find you.
You can find me at layla-jane.com and on Instagram, laylajanestudio_.
It's Layla.
Layla.
Layla is an amazing artist.
Thank you.
Just so you know, she did the artwork for my
I did.
Instagram page and everything. So thank you, Layla. And it'll be fun. I cannot wait for the next one. I'm hoping to have my mom on.
Yes.
She's fun.
She is fun.
And she knows a lot about the topic that we're going to discuss. So yeah, cheers for now.
Yeah. Bye. Oh, that was perfect.